Hello everyone, welcome to day 5 of my daily recaps of my 9-day chess tournament in Portugal. As you can see, I am not in the cornfield. I would have wished to do that, but right now it is nighttime here in Portugal, so we're gonna analyze my 5th game of the tournament from my hotel room bed. My opponent was a poker player and has won or has came in 19th place in the WSOP World Stars of Poker. Came in 19th place in I think 2003 and won $300,000. So when you get 19th in the world at poker, you get a good bag of money. So I found that out when preparing against him, which was really weird. He had all these games. I found his chess.com account so I could prepare against his chess.com games. And I knew he would play a carlsen against me, which I'm pretty comfortable in. Though when I looked at his profile the next day, his name had changed in his profile picture. And I wondered why this happened. And me, before the tournament, I changed the name of my account from Zachary Sane to another player in the tournament, my friend Gabriel. As I saw that he changed his name, I realized that he must have found my chess.com account, which was kind of funny. So anyways, all to say, we both get into this game very, very prepped. I mean, to the bone. We start off carlsen, okay? Then I go into 92. He knew I was going to do this. All my chess.com games are 92. I wanted to prepare something different, but 92 with the line that I usually play, I was comfortable in. So h4, h5 here. This is called the Bronstein variation of the carlsen, invented by David Bronstein, one of the greatest chess players to never become world champion. I go bishop d3. He trades. I take back with the c pawn, doubling my pawns on the d file. And here the common follow-up is queen b6, attacking both of my pawns or hindering at b2. And the idea is to play bishop e3 and give the b2 pawn, so that when black takes and attacks my rook, I go knight d2, and here I have 3 minor pieces developed, and for the engine, for me, it is enough compensation here. My opponent then ensues with not bishop b4, which I had prepped against, and not queen b6, which I had prepped against. He actually goes with queen a3, which is very interesting, and I've seen this in some of my chess.com games, but here I'm lost as far as theory goes. I don't know what to play. Luckily, I think logically, okay, queen a3 attacks this pawn, and I want to keep an eye on h5. So I go like queen e2, just to keep attacking h5 and keeping a presence of defense on d3. And now my opponent stuns me with a really ambitious plan, let's say. He goes knight a6. The idea is to go knight b4 and then just target the weaknesses here. Now I castle, and after knight b4, you might realize that black only has 2 pieces developed to my 4, and I'm castled. And so here I find rook b1, which is a really, really interesting move. Rook fb1, what it does is that it eclipses this knight onto this b file and x-rays that b7 pawn. Let's say black plays queen takes d3. I can now trade queens down 2 pawns and play rook takes b7. And here, judging by this, I have more than enough compensation for the pawn as my rook is super active on the b file. I'll double rooks and I'll just be absolutely dominant on the opponent's 7th rank and on the opponent's 8th rank if I decide to trade rooks there. So this I was not scared of whatsoever. That's why I chose this variation. My opponent doesn't go for a first knight move, doesn't go for a second knight move, but goes for a 3rd knight move in a row. How often do you see a knight literally scale the board in the opening to c2? So obviously I had seen this. White has 2 resources here. One was a bit too risky for the type of position, and that is knight c4, which is a bit better than what I played, but it's really interesting and complicated whatsoever. So here we're discovering attacking this knight on c2 by moving our knight and sacrificing our knight. So there's 2 options. If you take this knight, I have queen takes c2 and then c takes d3, and now I can play queen c4. I'll win back this pawn eventually, and we're just targeting these weaknesses on the b and c files. Okay, pretty hard to see, but it's acceptable. Now here, I had seen, when seeing briefly knight c4 and then giving it up, queen c3, which I didn't like. I stopped calculating here because I just judged that I can't attack the queen anymore, and my rook is just trapped. If I go like rook b3, the queen moves and takes my rook. Like I ain't doing all that. So in this position, I have to find rook c1, the ultra patient double attacking of this knight, giving knight takes d4. No, not that knight takes d4. Giving d takes, sorry. And then patience galore, I take this pawn and I win back this piece on c2. Now black has this crazy resource, knight takes d4, just like desperadoing this position. And after I take this queen, takes, and then takes, and here I'm down a pawn, but the engine judges that it's equal. All to say, I was not going to go into that line, nor that I had calculated that far. I had just prepared the normal rook b3 here. Attacking the queen, mind you, I'm still looking for my pawn back. I'm still looking for my compensation to translate into winning a pawn back or winning a substantial spatial advantage, or just like activity of my pieces, something to get me going. Okay, so I attack this queen. Very nice variation is that if you try to get two rooks for the queen, let's say queen takes b3, and then on a takes, you would have knight takes. Here, white can do, obviously, knight takes b3, defending the rook. And after knight takes, we have knight takes, and a queen and a knight for two rooks is completely winning. Even a queen for two rooks in this position, since it's a closed position, would be somewhat good for white. But okay, I go rook b3 and then queen a4, and now I go rook b1. And this is a mistake because the engine wants me to go rook c1 and attack both the root of the pawn structure on b6. But no, here I go rook b1, attacking b7 so many times. All black has to do here is b6, and c6 is not even like being threatened. But here, black really goes avant-garde with b5, and now I pursue with knight f3, defending my d4 pawn and as well attacking this knight so that it has to trade off. And here after g6, which is what my opponent played, by the way, my opponent is playing very, very well, like super, super accurately so far, first and second engine moves. This is the most critical moment of the game. I need to come up with a plan to outplay my opponent and either win a pawn or make some damage on a wing, okay? And it's very important that I say on a wing because I have two targets here. I have c6 and f7. It's important to just take a huge lens out, zoom out of the position, and just pinpoint what weaknesses in the opponent's camp are outstanding. And so the next plan I come up here tries to either attack this or trade one of my center pawns to open up this king, or try to hit f7. And it's really, really fascinating how this went down, okay? So I go queen f2 first. Now, the engine doesn't like this because of direct moves, such as knight h6, I play a move, and then knight g4 attacking my queen. Without this resource of knight h6, knight g4 that just hits my queen immediately, I think this is actually a really good plan. My idea here is that I'm defending e4 with my queen by x-ray to prepare e4, so I'm defending d4, sorry, to prepare e4 here, the push-up, while I'm liberating my knight so that my queen still defends d4. Bishop e7, e4, okay? The idea is that I just want to trade. I do not want this pawn to take, because obviously this c6 pawn is a weakness. So first I do queen c2, attacking c6, and then rook c8, and now the maneuver is complete with e takes d5. Forcing e takes because this pawn is pinned, it cannot take my pawn. And so now I have kind of this break that's possible. And this is the only move in the game in which I have a small advantage. It's one of those moments in chess or in a chess game where if you do not find this small resource against a 2177 Dutch chess player, it's going to be difficult for you to win the game. I want to actually challenge you. Challenge yourself, maybe for fun, maybe seriously. White to play and find the plan. I'm not going to tell you like find mate in 5. It's not mate in 5. You're not winning a pawn immediately, but try to find the plan here. How should white proceed? You know what weaknesses we're targeting, c6, f7. You know what strengths we have, this kind of super nice e5 pawn, and you know that the king's in the center. The correct plan here is the insanely hard to spot, or it's possible to spot actually. You just have to target it right. Knight e2. Knight e2 has many goals, my friend, many goals. You want to reroute the knight to f4 to then force an e6 and then make this pawn structure crumble with this knight hitting g6. Or if black just defends, you know, the f7 pawn or whatnot, anything on this wing, white retrieves the pawn back by some beautiful order of moves involving knight c3 attacking the queen. The queen is forced to a5. Knight takes d5, and now this pin is in full action. And not only did we win back the pawn here, this knight is like an absolute octopus knight in the center here, dominating all squares, preventing black to castle, side note, because we take the bishop with check, and then we win the rook or the exchange here. That's my only miss of the game, and that's a really good learning moment, because I believed in my position and I played good moves up until here, and this was the time to capitalize. And you only have one shot. You know, do not miss your chance and blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Queen d2 is what was played. My plan is to hike up the queen here, go knight g5, rook f1, and just to pressure this f7 pawn. So king f8, queen f4, and then I go rook f1. This plan for black magically works. Look how in time they come, literally by one tempo. King f8, queen f4, king g7, rook f1, knight h6, knight g5, and then rook f8. Right on time, right as I'm attacking this pawn. A friend of mine was talking to me about piece economy at the end of this game while analyzing. And yes, I have 4 pieces here attacking this weakness, or attacking the king, compared to just 2 defending, or 3 at best, because bishop takes up f6. Number 1, don't attack with your queen first, because it's harder to penetrate. Number 2, I don't have a breakthrough here. So this e6 pawn is deemed no value. Not invaluable, not irreplaceable, just no value. I'm not finding the word, it's late here. So on e6, just f6, like declining everything. And I had seen something like knight f6, some magical stuff, but just takes, and there's absolutely nothing here. So I even went with so many creative options, but nothing works. And so I went rook b2. And now as the black pieces, you need to call the bluff right up the alley of a poker player saying right there. And he does. He plays c5. He calls the bluff on my attack. My attack is going nowhere, even though I'm rerouting my last piece to get into this. It's absolutely over. c5 comes in time because my king's weakness is ticking, and queen takes d4 check, forcing a queen trade, is up. And so here in this position, I kind of crumble. Look, if I go knight e2 to defend this, c takes, this is the best engine move, by the way, and like literally king h1, denying all allegations made against the white pieces and moving on, letting knight f5, and black is absolutely dominant. And if takes, and this is the key part that I missed, I thought that after queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, this was going to be fine. My opponent hits me with a reverse move order, bishop takes c5 check, forcing my king to move, and then takes. And somehow this is a bit spicier, even though it comes to the same thing, because black are just taking advantage of everything. They're pounding their moves in and forcing mine. And this is where it becomes really, really uncomfortable for the white pieces, because, okay, bishop here, yes, it's just attacking my rook goes back, but then knight g4. And look at the presence of these minor pieces against my king. They're so nice and ingrained into the position. I go rook e2 attacking the bishop, and so like just, it's not even worth mentioning, but yeah, you can't take my pawn. Essentially, I take the bishop, and this is a really, really, really nice move. I mean, engraving with this d4 move, this bishop, ingraining this bishop on e3, while preventing me to defend my e5 pawn with any pawn moves from my section. And so this pawn is left super isolated in the center, overextended, and extremely hard to defend. So I can play e6, and you can't take because I have a fork with my knight. But of course they see this, and f6 just deals with my knight, kicks it, and this pawn is officially too hard to defend to maintain. So rook c6 to attack my pawn. I just let go of it and force or try some counter-attacking things on this b file with a4 here. It looks like I'm giving my pawn with a4, but the reality is I'm just making these pawns a little bit worse to then double my rooks and win them back. Of course, my opponent sees this. Rook b8 was played. Rook b1, knight e5, and then we take. And I missed this, actually. I was very low on time. I had 1 minute left to complete the next 5 moves. My opponent goes rook b6. I can't save this pawn. I can't take it because I lose a rook. And I played knight c5. Okay, maybe to threaten some things, but overall, this is just worse because after rook takes and not pawn takes, which is a nice little kick as well. Rook takes, this attacks my knight and my rook. So evidently enough, this forces a rook trade. So I take once, and then again, attacks my rook and attacks my knight, forces another rook trade. And this endgame 2 pawns down is completely winning for the black pieces. Even without this b pawn, it's completely winning for the black pieces. Most likely, yeah. It would be a harder grind, but this pawn to the side here is just too overextended on the western side of the board for my king. And the next 10 moves, I would say, yeah, next 11 moves are a pretty big wrap here. I just shuffle my king towards the center, try to mitigate risk, and here I'm just d3, man. It's just lost again because threats are coming in. So I lose a third pawn, and then after trading, king d3, b3. Yeah, it's just completely over. I can't do much here. The pawns are running down the board, and if my king commits, well, then this king comes in, and we'll just take these pawns. It's like completely over. So I try to, scrap some counter-attacking chances. And low-key, the DGT board did me dirty here because it says I resigned after knight h3. But in reality, I really waited for my opponent to play bishop d6 and then force this resignation, because here this is the resigning move. Like, this gives me the opportunity to resign because I'm just losing everything. All my pawns are falling, and if I block, well, then just trading. And this pawn endgame is, like, sad. But yeah, officially I resigned after my own move, knight h3. But yeah, my opponent played really well. Little anecdote. I was talking to my opponent after the game, and I told you I prepared against him and he prepared against me really well because we found each other's chess.com accounts. And he goes to me after the game, he said, "You're very easy to prepare against. This was a very easy game." I was like, okay. I mean, I can't imagine beating somebody at chess and then just saying that to them. So yeah, hurt my feelings. But overall, an important game to understand. Maybe my prep or that opening is a bit too weak. Giving a b2 pawn against a stronger player is a big risk to take into account for the next times. Maybe we switch up our Caro-Kann, we'll see. But overall, a good learning experience. I come out of round 5 with 2.5 out of 5. Tomorrow, round 6 is against a 0-rated opponent again. Portuguese 0-rated. It's the third opponent. The pairings are doing me dirty too, like Rev. It's the third 0-rated opponent that I'm having. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this elongated analysis. There weren't many lines I wanted to touch up on because you saw mainly what I was calculating the whole time. And yeah, man, I just got outplayed. Once that pawn was kept and I missed that 92 resource, that's when it started to go south and my attack didn't work. And just all those pieces on that side of the board and it not working out let that his majority of pieces on the left side of the board could just go out for a thrill. And that's exactly what I was showed with that c5 move, and then the bishop comes into play, and then the queens are traded off the board, the rook comes on to the c file, the bishop on e3, the knight on g4, and then all of those pieces are activated. So a lot of work to do on that prophylaxis side of things, absolutely. And what I would say is also, this is a good lens for the future. This game really taught me that, look, I'm a chess content creator. I have over 27,000 games online on live chess. If my next opponent or the opponent after that just finds that chess.com account, I'm very easy to prepare against, especially with the white pieces, because you decide exactly what you play against me and then you can see what I play against. So it's a big weakness of mine, and it's important for me to acknowledge that and to always come up with new openings and new things to surprise my opponents with, because otherwise it's going to be sink or sink. And so we need to swim in life. So go out there, go swim. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sending you love. That is the recap of Game 5, 2.5 out of 5 after 5 rounds, 1 round recap every day. Thanks for watching.